The summer league is finally over for the Houston Rockets. They went 2-3, but Reed Sheppard made the first team all summer league. He played really well. We're going to be discussing him, Cam Whitmore, newest Rocket AJ Griffin, and a few other topics. So you're not going to want to miss this episode of the Bradeaux and Will Show. Stay tuned.
All right, and welcome back to the episode of the Bradeaux and Will Show. As you heard Brad in the intro, we're going to talk about Summer League. There's some other topics that kind of came out in the last couple of days that we can talk about with the Houston Rockets. So we can just jump right into it, talk about Summer League. Reed Sheppard made first team in the Summer League. Brad, what'd you see from Reed Sheppard? And he played, 4 games? He didn't play that?
Right.
So what'd you see from him in those 4 games?
Yeah, Reed played 4 games. I'll read off his stats really quickly. In those 4, he averaged 20 points, 4.8 rebounds, 5.3 assists, averaged 2.8 steals, and 1.3 blocks. So amongst all rookies, through 4 games at least, he led them in total points, total steals, and amongst guards, he led everybody in blocks as well. So really solid summer league for Reed. He was off from 3, only shot 28% from 3. That's what he's known for. But again, I want to say that it's also impressive for me that Reed was able to make an impact while also not being able to have his shot fully there. That debunks the narrative that all he is a shooter, because he was still able to make an impact without the jumper being there. And I want to fast forward to the last game that he played. He started off extremely slow, probably 1 for 7 from the field, and he ended up finishing that game 9 for 17. While really getting his mid-range going. The pull-up midi looks really good. He worked with Chris Paul this summer, and it's evident that mid-range shot looks really comfortable for him. He's got a few things he does need to work on. I thought he got his handle. He was getting stripped too much for my liking. That can improve. And some of the other issues he was having, I believe, and we'll iterate the same thing, will be fixed on the main roster. He was getting blitzed like prime Stephen Curry in those last few games. So that won't be happening when he goes on to the Rockets. But overall, again, he was first team all summer league for a reason. Had a really good showing, showed a ton of potential. I like the scrappiness on defense. The point of attack defense can be better. He did get blown by a few times, more than a few times actually. But he was very handsy, got a lot of steals, a lot of blocks, the Fred VanVleet blocks. So really a lot of steals, and I guess that's what I would say. So I was impressed. I was impressed with Reed. The Rockets are gonna like him, and I expect him to see minutes from day one. What about you, Will?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you hit the head on the nail when you talked about how it's impressive that he was able to still find a way to overall turn in a positive summer league, even though his jumper wasn't falling as consistently as you'd want it to. Small sample size, so that's why the number looks the way that it does. But even within that small sample size, it didn't fall the way you'd want it to. But for me, like I said, obviously you would prefer to see the jumper fall, but it was interesting to see how he could impact the game in other ways without it, because we know that's going to be there, right? If there's one guy on the team I don't have to worry about being able to hit an open 3, it's Reed Sheppard. And I think Brad touched on it. It just completely shuts down the narrative that he's just a shooter. I think that was always kind of a lazy, like it was. I think it was just like, oh, there's this white kid who can shoot, so he's JJ Redick, and like, no, he's a little bit more than that. And I think you saw that in summer league. You saw him be able to run like the actual point guard. I know a lot of people kind of saw him as more like a 2 guard, and he was straight up running point guard in summer league, and he was doing a really good job at it. I think the game that really showed you like what he's made of, I think the second game he played against the Wizards, when he was throwing, it was the Wizards, right? Yeah. When he was throwing like skip passes, he was throwing dimes, he was hitting guys cutting from the slot, hitting guys cutting from baseline. He was throwing lobs to Cam Whitmore. Like, he was showing you a complete versatility at, the different type of passes he's capable of making. And so that was really like cool for me to see. And then I think the other game that stood out for me in terms of his point guard play was the most recent one he played against the Timberwolves, where, as Brad touched on, he started the game off really, really rough. Those last 2 games against the Timberwolves and against the Pistons, you could tell the opposing team saw how good Reed looked against the Hawks. Well, no, it wasn't the Hawks. The Lakers and the Wizards in games 1 and game 2. And they were like, all right, we're not going to let him go off against us. And against the Pistons back to back, you can kind of tell he was a little gassed, and the pressure got to him. in the Timberwolves game, the pressure was getting to him in that first half, but he started finding ways to deal with it and still get his shot off, get to his spots. Like Brad touched on, the pull up midi is like already elite. Like I think we can stamp that as it is right now. He's going to be a good pull up mid range shooter, and that's what you want to see from him. If he's going to be someone who's on the undersized aspect, you want him to be able to have that counter for what happens when I take away your 3-point shot, right? Can you still get to your spots? And he was able to do that. So that was really impressive for me. Except the court vision was really impressive to me. The way he was able to keep his hands active. Like I said, he was getting strips. He was getting lane steals, like just everything else. And then just on top of that, like it just seems like Reed makes the right play. Like I know that sounds cliche and it's like, well, what does that mean? But it just, I don't know, man, just watching him play, it was like just the simple things, bro. Even if it didn't result in like a counting stat, just what he did, whether he was cutting to free somebody up, or the pass that he made that necessarily didn't result in an assist, or the pass he made that resulted in someone else getting an assist, just something like that, to where it's like you may not understand how much he impacted the game if you just look at the raw box score, but watching it, you can tell like this guy has a different like level of understanding of the sport of basketball, and he has it at such a young age. And so for me, it's like the way he was getting blitzed and guy like Brad treated him like he was prime Steph Curry, the way that was happening to him. And so that's not going to happen when he's with the main team. If you want to give him that treatment, I mean, so be it, because that means like Alperen Şengün's getting your scraps, and you don't want him. You want to give him attention, right? You want Jalen Green got his stuff going. He's going to be a problem. Amen Thompson getting down, that's going to be a problem. So like you probably don't want to exhaust all your resources and just shutting down Reacher, because it's going to leave somebody else wide open or leave somebody else with less defensive attention. So I don't think that's going to happen when he's with the main team. I think he's going to get a lot better looks. There was no screen set for Reed the entire time in Summer League. He got maybe 3 or 4 like actual solid screens. It was a play. It was against the Pistons when we were watching in the playback, and we were all screaming like, "Set Reed a screen." I didn't. You know what play I'm talking about, Brad?
Yeah, it was probably in the Timberwolves game too, because throughout the entire summer league, Dante and Orlando Robinson were setting the worst screens I've ever seen.
No screen. They were setting those like prime Christian Wood screens where they're like just kind of pretending to be there and they're slipping immediately. Yeah. And it's like, come on, man, like give him a solid screen so he can go around it. And so that's obviously going to get fixed. I think obviously Steven Adams is arguably the best screener in the league, and I think Şengün is really, really underrated as a screener as well. And then on top of that, he didn't get any catch and shoot opportunities. Off the top of my head, I kind of only remember him shooting catch and shoot threes in that first game. I could be wrong there, but I don't remember him shooting too many catch and shoot opportunities. And he's going to get a bunch of that. Like that's probably going to be the main way he impacts the game immediately. At the next level is coming off of those screens and hitting catch and shoot opportunities in the corner or in transition. That's another area too. I'll kind of let my plan here where like I would see the team pushing the tempo on transition, and I'm like, if y'all just look over your shoulder, Reed is right there at the elbow and he's wide open. Just give him the ball. You know what I'm saying? I understand it's transition, so you think like layup over 3, but he's a sniper. He's wide open. Like I would just go ahead and let him, put the shot up. So stuff like that's gonna get sorted out with the main team. POE defense, like Brad said, needs some work. And I think his passes could use a little bit more velocity at times. But other than that, man, like it's kind of what you should expect from a guy in his first summer. I think he was extremely impressive in his 4 games he played, and I'm super excited for him to play with the main team. But before we get off of Reed Sheppard, I think it was Sam Vecini came out today and said that he has Reed Sheppard ahead of Jalen Green in terms of, did he use the word prospect, or was it he has a higher? I think he said he actually has a higher ceiling. I guess what he said.
Higher ceiling potential, I believe.
Yeah, something like that. So, Brad, what do you think about Reed Sheppard having a higher potential than Jalen Green?
Yeah, it's still early for that. I feel like I've seen Jalen Green's, ceiling. We saw it in that March. That's what prime Jalen Green is going to look like. A guy who's putting up 30 on ridiculous efficiency is going to have to force a ton of coverage his way, has a ton of gravity, opens up the game for everybody else. That's Jalen Green's potential. But again, that was 1 month. Got to see it consistently. I hate saying that every single episode we talk about Jalen Green, but that's the fact of the matter. When it comes to Reed Sheppard, yeah, I mean, Reed can be a hell of a basketball player. The shot is real, despite, shooting 28% in Summer League. We saw it, Yeah, he was off from three, but from mid range, it was cash money. That's gonna be him. Same thing from deep. Potential wise, I mean it's so early. We haven't even seen this kid walk into the league yet. I will say this: it's a good problem to have when you have a bunch of players on the team and you have to argue which one has the most potential. And the Rockets have a number of guys in that conversation, whether it's Şengün, Amin Thompson, Jalen Green, and now Reed Sheppard. So it makes for a fun conversation. I guess I'm giving the boring answer. I guess I don't really have one yet. I have to see Reed at the NBA level, but I am excited for his career. I mean, he could be one of those guys. I expect him to take Fred's spot eventually. But that'll be my answer.
I think that Jalen Green as a prospect and what we knew about him when he was drafted, I think you could argue he is like for sure at worst like the second best prospect on this team. If that's the version of him, the guy that we thought we were getting when we drafted him. I think the reason that these combos are had is because we are going into year 4 and we haven't seen that guy yet. And I get it, he's young and there's these all these different other circumstances that play into why someone who was drafted high and thought of highly hasn't lived up to those expectations just yet. But it is a result-based league. It is based upon what have you done. And, we can be blunt. He hasn't lived up to those expectations that we had for him when we drafted him. Was that almost 4 years ago now?
Right.
So, yeah, I think that's the reason why these combos happen is because he hasn't lived up to those expectations. So, where we talk about his potential, a lot of people are basing it not off of what we thought about him when he was drafted. They're basing it off of the most recent version we saw of him. And so that's why, I understand why Sam Vecini said that. And I understand why people out there might share the same opinion that, Jalen may not be one of the better prospects on the team. Like I said, I do think that when he's at his best, I think he's as good as any. I think he might be the best player on the team if he's at his best, right? But like Brad touched on, you don't see that at all consistently, right? You get that guy for 1 month every year and maybe that, right? And so that's why. And I said it today, and I feel like the conversation is pretty simple. I don't think there's really even much wiggle room or room for discussion on it. I think it's as simple as Jalen Green comes out next season and he plays basketball and he plays at a really good level. In all of these conversations about him not being, where he ranks as a prospect or coming off the bench, getting traded, if he goes out next season and shows us the Jalen Green that we know he can be, the Jalen Green that we thought we were getting when we were drafting him, the one we saw, flashes of in March, if he's that guy, trust and believe he's going to be starting on this team. He's going to get a max contract. He's going to be here for the long haul. That question gets answered. But if he doesn't, I mean, he probably won't finish the season as a Rocket. And I think that's just as simple as it gets. And so, for me, the answer to that question is it's in Jalen's hands. What version of Jalen are we going to get next season? If he's at his best, obviously, I think he's better than Reed Sheppard. I think he's, I think if he's at his best, you could argue either him or Şengün as the best player on this team. And I think you could make the case for either one of them, and you wouldn't be wrong. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with the Reed Sheppard, Jalen Green thing. But I don't know if anything you add to Reed Sheppard, Jalen Green, anything else before we move to the next topic.
I'm with you there. I know you want to get on to Cam Whitmore with the next topic. If anything, I can lead that off.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So Cam Whitmore, the first 2 games, I'll read off his stat. He played 3 games, guys. So in those first 2 games, had a strong showing, especially in the second one against the Wizards. But he was averaging 22.5 points, 9 boards. Most impressively, 4 assists. Had 4 assists in each of those first 2 games, and 4.5 steals on 53 field goal percentage. But the Rockets decided, and I thought before summer league, Cam's only playing 2 games and he's out. The Rockets said, yeah, let's get Cam in there for a 3rd game. 3rd game comes around, Cam shot 1 for 15. So, yeah, obviously the final stats aren't going to look the best. Will didn't know his 3-point percentage going into this.
Well, before you let me guess it, because
you're not going to guess it, but go ahead.
Is it below 10%?
It is below 10%.
I figured, because I don't think he made any threes. Is it like 2?
Yeah, he made 1 3, I believe, in the whole summer league.
What's the number?
So he made 1 of those threes, and he was 7% from 3 on the summer league. 7%. So overall, 16.7 points, 38% from the field, 7% from 3.
We should for free throw. My chance. My fault. I didn't mean to cut you off.
68% from the free throw. 7 boards. What I like the most, he had 4.3 assists. That's a lot for Cam. Only 1.3 turnovers. So that's
That's good.
very good processing. I know Will's going to touch on that when he speaks, so I won't say too much about that. And then he had 3.3 steals. So very good in the passing lanes. Had a ton of passing lane steals. And yeah, with Cam, for me, when I watch him on the Houston Rockets main team, I just want to see him cutting off ball. He was a very good cutter in the summer league. And him and Reed had a great connection. I didn't touch on it in the Reed segment, but I love the ability for Reed to be able to find a cutter like Cam Whitmore, and it was the connection was evident. So that's one thing about Cam I'll be looking forward to with these other athletic guys on the roster. But yeah, when Cam's playing with like Şengün and guys like that, his movement off the ball is gonna speak volumes, and he's gonna be such an impact player if he just sticks to things like that, and he's not forcing terrible shots. The processing is just processing and shot selection with Cam. He has all the talent in the world to me. He's a good POA defender, very strong, can stay in front of a lot of guys. Again, very good in the passing lanes. It's just the decision making on offense. That's the main thing with him. So I like him. He just turned 20 years old. Um, we're just gonna pray about that shot selection. That's all I kind of say for Cam. Go ahead, Will.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say I was disappointed in Cam Whitmore's summer league this year. I expected him to come out and dominate. I don't know if I said this on this podcast. I know I've said it in spaces and on playback, but I didn't want him to play in summer league. I didn't want him or Ben to play because I didn't think they had anything to gain from it. I thought Cam Whitmore was going to be like just way too good for summer league because he was way too good for it in his rookie season. I'm like, well, he was already way too good for it rookie year. He had a year of NBA experience under his belt, and he's had like half of an NBA offseason. And like those are the two biggest. That's the reason why like rookies usually don't come in and dominate summer league more than the second year guys because the second year guys are you're older, you're stronger, but they have the NBA experience, the NBA offseason under their belt. And so I'm like, if Cam Whitmore plays, which he ultimately did, I'm like, he's gonna go out there and average 30, like, and it's probably gonna be like a 30 in his sleep, and then he didn't, and it was like, oh, all right, like that's a little concerning. The fact that the 3-point shot just did not fall, and I honestly don't know why because he's a good shooter. Like I forgot what he shot from three.
Statistically, last year he was outside of Aaron Holiday, I believe he was the second best catch.
Yeah, he's a good shooter. Like that's why it was so confusing to me that like he's a good shooter. So I don't know why his 3-point shot wasn't falling the way that it was, and it wasn't like he was taking like the 3-point shot. I think is the one area where his shot selection wasn't that bad. Like I think it was pretty normal from three. It just wasn't falling for some reason. I don't really know why. The free throws, the only reason he was actually like not too good at this in the regular season too. It's crazy because there's a lot of guys in the NBA who are like good shooters. Like Cam can spark up from three. He can hit a pull up midi. Can't make a free throw for some reason. It's kind of weird. So that was one thing that he still struggled at from free throw. But the biggest thing was the shot selection and the decision making. I will give Cam this much credit. It was better than what it has been in times past. Like he definitely threw some passes and made some decisions that I have not seen him make at all before. Especially like not in this type of medium where it will be very easy for him to go out there and just ball hog and be, try to do his best like LeBron James impression. So I do want to give him, his credit there. Like averaging, like you said, was it 4 assists a game, something like that?
4.3 assists, yeah.
Like if you know anything about rookie Cam Whitmore, if Cam Whitmore, like, did Cam get more than 4 assists at all his rookie season?
I remember tweeting at the end of the year, Cam has his career high in assists, and I believe it was 3 or 4.
Yeah, like
double check while you talk. Go ahead.
I'm pretty sure he had. If it wasn't the lowest, he was for sure bottom 10 in assist percentage last year. Like I want to say he was he was pretty low. So like to walk away with 4 assists, like that's obviously improvement for him. But for me, it's like if the shot selection, the IQ still is a work in progress. It still very much is not where you'd want it to be at, which is okay because he's just 20 years old. But it's like if that's going to be a work in progress, man, I still want you to dominate then. Like if you're gonna take bad shots, be a bad shot maker. And he wasn't. And for me, that's where it got a little like, oh. And especially in that last game where he was like, it was like he just got knocked completely off of his game. It was, you could tell he was just frustrated. And so for me, that was a little concerning. Not because I think he's a bust or I think he's cut. Like, bro, he's 20 years old. And I keep saying it, like, if there's any coach on this team who can kind of get get the best version of Cam Whitmore. I do believe it's Ime Udoka. I think he can, with his defensive and team first, make the extra pass philosophy. I think that Cam Whitmore is going to be forced to learn how to play like that. But it's usually not a good sign when somebody goes into year 2 and struggles like that. That's usually, like, typically speaking, that's not a good, like, that's the sign that the warning sign we had with Dacian Nix and Josh Christopher. I know those are two separate guys, lower prospects, different situations, but we could kind of tell the end was near for both of those guys when they won the summer league year 2 and what should have been like dominant runs for the both of them, especially Josh Christopher. And then it didn't happen. We're like, man, like, that's the beginning of the end. So once again, I'm not saying that Cam Whitmore is the beginning of his end at all. I'm not saying that at all, but it definitely isn't an encouraging sign for me. So like, I want to see more from Cam before I kind of crown him. Like, I know a lot of people want to start him or crown him as like the best prospect. I don't think I can't put him there yet until he overcomes his shortcomings, and that's gonna be a work in progress. But that's where I'm at with Cam. Did you want anything else? I think that kind of segues perfectly into the next topic.
Yeah, last thing I'll say really quickly, again, 3-game sample, so I won't be too concerned with 1 of 14 from 3. I know NBA players go through cold spells. Jumper is still there, so we'll see what he does. But I do think he dominated in the terms of first 2 games. If they would have pulled him, I would have been okay with his performance. Last game cooked everything. But go ahead, Will.
Bro, I'll say, and then the segue into the next one, Mr. AJ Griffin. Like I said, it's usually not a good sign when a player is going into year 2 in summer league struggling. They say that summer league doesn't matter, and like, to a degree, I agree with that. There's countless examples throughout NBA history of guys who struggled in summer league for whatever reason, and went on to be like all-stars. Have them, like Trae Young historically struggled at summer league and went on. He's obviously one of probably the 6 or 7 best offensive players in the entire league right now. Like, obviously, and then like there's other guys like Kevin Knox who had a good summer league run. I'm not even sure he's on an NBA roster right now. You know what I'm saying? So like, it doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things, but that's usually an applicable sentence when talking about a rookie, right? If you're in year 3 on forward and you're struggling in summer league, that's usually a sign that, like, no, this actually does matter. You're probably not where you'd want to be. And that's where it was with AJ Griffin. It was like, I'm not even really sure what I wanted to see from AJ Griffin in summer league, but I know what I saw was not it. Like, I know that much. I don't, he wasn't making the threes, right? And it wasn't like he wasn't getting good looks. Like, I remember it was, I believe it was the second game. I forgot who we played. I keep forgetting who we played.
The Wizards, they played in the second game.
I think it was the Wizards game where Reed Sheppard was just diming. Like, I'm talking, putting him on a silver platter, like right in the shooting hand, right in the shooting pocket to Reed in the corners. And he just kept missing them. And I'm like, dog, like, I understand you're not going to be the best defensively. I get that attacking, the rim isn't really your thing either. Your thing is shooting. Like, that's what you're supposed to be good at. Like, and you're not doing anything else. And the one thing you're supposed to be good at, you're struggling at, and you're struggling at it this mightily, and it's on good looks and what's supposed to be like your hot spot. Yeah, man. He kept trying to do this like half spin in like the post. I don't really know what he was trying to do with that one. But yeah, nah, man. It definitely was like, I don't think he bought himself any playing time with this summer. Matter of fact, I don't think he bought himself was a ticket to the G League. I think that's where he's headed at this point in time, which is like, it's okay. Like, we traded a 2nd-round pick in the role player draft for AJ Griffin, and like, I'd much rather bank on the guy who was at one point in time viewed as a top 5 player in his draft class over a random 2nd-round pick prospect. So like, I'm not saying I regret doing the trade, but whatever like hype train and hype I had for AJ, it left. I've kind of came down to earth a bit more on AJ. I know he said he wasn't going to play. Now I know he's not going to play. He, like I said, he probably will see some time in the G League. And it wouldn't shock me if he spends like 1 season in Houston. If like, it wouldn't shock me if that's where it's headed right now, just because how far away he is and what our goals are going to be past this season. It may not align. So yeah, AJ Griffin didn't buy himself no PT in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And then, I always shout out David. We had that AJ Griffin episode with him. You can check that on the channel. On that episode, we went in depth. AJ had a really good rookie season shooting from three, one of the best ever from a volume 3-point shooter as a teenager. We touched on that. We also touched on how he was a very poor defender. So one thing that was consistent, the defense was not good in the summer league. As for the shooting, it was not good. 28% on 5 attempts, as Will mentioned. Reed was giving him a ton of good looks, and outside of the ones that Reed was feeding him, he just wasn't hitting them as a whole. So yeah, I mean, you look at his stats as a whole. I mean, he only shot 39% from the field. I mean, it didn't look pretty anywhere. As a guy who struggles that much defensively, you have to excel at what you're best at, and that's shooting for him. And we didn't see that, and we didn't see that on the Atlanta Hawks last season as well, which is a big reason why he fell out of the rotation for Quinn Snyder. So yeah, he has a team option going into next year. We'll see what happens. It's not looking good for him. He wasn't going to get minutes regardless, in my opinion. If you look at the summer league performance, he could have excelled, and he wasn't going to be getting burned over Cam Whitmore, Reed Sheppard or Tari Eason. That's his competition.
I think he could have bought himself some like spot minutes. I like how we last season how we would throw in Reggie Bullock kind of situation. I could see like
if injuries occur, then
like I could see him doing something like that, but obviously with what I saw from Summerlin, I don't think that's gonna happen either.
Yeah. I'm wishing him the best. He's still crazy enough. He's still only 20 years old. The kid is 20.
Really? He's only 20?
He's 20 going into year 3. That's how young he is.
Crazy.
He was the third youngest player in the league when he came in as a rookie. So
how much older is he than Cam?
So his birthday's in like a month.
Oh, they're like a month apart.
Yeah. So his birthday's coming up. But yeah, so still very young. Rooting for him. It sucks. His athleticism got zapped. Like he was going to be one of those guys, one of the ones for sure. So hopefully he can find his way. But yeah, not looking good so far. But again, it's just summer league. We'll see what happens come training camp. But our next topic, I believe, was the Şengün. The Rockets believe Alperen Şengün. It came out today as a report. Houston Rockets believe Alperen Şengün is a top 5 center in the league right now. Fun topic. What do you think, Bill?
I didn't do any like listing the center, so I'm not even sure. He may not be a top 5 center, but I think that he definitely belongs in the conversation for the 5th spot. Like I don't think it should be blasphemy to say that at the end of next season he would be like firmly in that conversation, if not just downright the 5th best center in the entire NBA. But for me, the important part was just that the Rockets value him. I think that kind of shuts down any of like the concerns about, maybe the Rockets don't like him, maybe they're trying to shop him. I haven't really heard like of all the people we've heard being moved. I've never really heard Şengün's name from like reputable sources. So yeah, I don't think they're trying to move him. I know that everybody's kind of like panicking because he hasn't got the contract extension, which we talked about before, and why that is what it is. But yeah, for me, the important thing was that he is valued, right? That this is a franchise that cares about him. I think more than anybody on this roster right now, I don't think there's a single person on this roster where I would be more upset if we traded right now than Alperen Şengün, just because he is so good, and you can see how close he is to being really good. He's I think he just turned 22, right?
He just turned 22, correct?
Yeah, he just turned 22. So like he's been insanely good. I think he's a lot better than what the average NBA fan gives him credit for, and he did it at 21 years old. He's one of the youngest players in the league, and so just from the natural progression of things, one would assume that as he continues to get older, I think we sometimes think that because guys are so good early on that means they're close to their ceiling. But I think all that does for me is if their ceiling was right here before and they started exceeding expectations, now their ceiling's up here. Like I think it all moves up. So for me, it's like if he was this good already, I can only imagine how good he's going to be 3, 4, 5 years from now. So yeah, I don't want to move him in any, by any means right now. And I think, that report kind of says that he's probably going to be here for a little minute, despite the fact that he hasn't got a contract extension just yet. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah. I mean, most importantly, I don't want to get into the top 5 centers. I mean, there's a number of guys like really good, like in that tier. Probably I numbered them out. It's like 8 or 9 of them. Şengün is definitely well.
We didn't even say Bam when we were talking earlier, did we?
Say it again.
Did we mention Bam when because we
Yeah,
we did one off camera. I don't know if
yeah.
we
So
said
yeah, I'll say the list. I mean, the guys who would be in the conversation are going to be Embiid, Jokic, Anthony Davis. You're not moving those guys.
yeah.
You got Bam, Sabonis, Gobert, Wemby, and Cat. You know, wherever you have Şengün in there, he's definitely in the middle. In
Throw
my personal
Porzingis in
opinion.
there.
Yeah, yeah. So again, as Will touched on, the Rockets value him. That's the most important thing. And the big conversation is, okay, the Rockets aren't giving him his max. You know, what's the deal there? We still have to see. You know, the Rockets haven't given a reason for it, but logically, from what we do know, you know, the CBA is extremely strict now, and the Rockets are just maintaining cap flexibility going into the next offseason. That's the only assumption that we can make. But yeah, the Rockets value him. They understand how good of a player, a 21-year-old who can go out there and average 21, 9, and 5, the second youngest player in league history to do that since Luka Doncic, you know? So it's impressive stuff right there. The Rockets see that. And Ime Udoka is going to have him at the forefront of the Rockets offense. So, yeah, I was happy to see them say that, but that's what I have to say.
That's it for me as well. Off season for the Rockets is kind of at that point where I think we're kind of at the dead period. I don't think we're going to see them make. I mean, I'm not even sure there's even a roster spot available to make any more signings. So I think the roster's kind of done. I don't think we're going to see any trades. Hopefully we have just a summer of guys just in the gym working out, and I guess we'll start kind of hearing more about the team, and I guess August for like training camp and stuff like that. That's it for this episode. Appreciate you guys for listening. Appreciate you guys for like, comment, subscribe, and keeping up with the podcast. Obviously, we'll be back whenever that is, when there's something to talk about with the Rockets. We'll probably have some interesting guests lined up to kind of come on the podcast and talk to you guys during the off season. And then obviously when the season comes back around, we'll be back for that, streaming the games and playback. Spaces will start coming back, stuff like that. So once again, just appreciate you guys for rocking with us. And that's it for me. I don't know if Brad has anything else to do before I shut it down.
Appreciate y'all for tuning in, man. We'll be back soon.